Olá malta, bem-vindos a mais um episódio do Prova de Contacto. Eu sou o João Paulo e como sempre tenho aqui o Ruben. Olá Ruben.
Olá malta.
E hoje temos aqui um episódio um bocadinho diferente
Um bocadinho.
do habitual, esperemos que gostem. Mas desde já vamos começar por agradecer aos nossos patronos, antes que a gente esqueça, como já aconteceu antes. Portanto, muito obrigado ao Fabrício Santos, ao Nuno Cruz, ao Rui Pedro Oliveira, ao Pedro Pinto, ao Marco Miguel e ao Felipe Barra. Obrigado pelo vosso apoio, malta, por continuarem do nosso lado.
Sim, obrigado, malta.
E avisamos desde já que esta conversa vai ser em inglês. Portanto, se vocês estiverem a ouvir nos vossos leitores favoritos de podcast, é bom que percebam minimamente inglês. Se tiver alguma dificuldade, por qualquer razão, então a gente sugere que vocês vejam o podcast no YouTube para usar as legendas automáticas, ou até mesmo, se não me engano, também o Spotify, também acho que já tem.
Deem-nos feedback em relação a isso, como é que isso está a correr das transcrições.
Das transcrições. Por isso, como sempre, vamos começar com uma pequena bio da nossa convidada, que vai ser o Ruben a fazer, e depois iremos começar então a conversa logo em inglês, ok, malta?
Então, durante 45 anos, uma mulher percorreu as ruas de Chicago e Nova York com uma câmera ao pescoço e nunca mostrou uma fotografia a ninguém. Morreu quase na miséria, sem que ninguém soubesse o que guardava em centenas de caixas de negativos. Hoje é considerada uma das grandes fotógrafas do século XX. Para nos ajudar a perceber quem foi Vivian Maier e o que torna o seu trabalho tão poderoso, temos connosco Morin, formada na Escola Nacional de Fotografia de Rua e diretora da Dichroma Fotografia em Madrid. Foi uma das primeiras pessoas a estudar o arquivo de Vivian a fundo e é a curadora da exposição Vivian Maier Antologia, que está patente no Centro Português de Fotografia no Porto até 30 de agosto. Anne, welcome to our podcast.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Hello, thank you for inviting me to the podcast.
So this exhibition has already been shown in Vienna, Berlin, São Paulo, Seoul. How does it feel to bring it here to Centro Português de Fotografia, a space so deeply connected to the history of photography itself?
Well, it was necessary to share this exhibition with the Portuguese public. We did an exhibition in Cascais some years ago, but this exhibition is really different. And Vivian Maier is now a kind of, I would say, a phenomenon, an international phenomenon, and really it was important to bring the Portuguese audience in that precise institution who has a great trajectory in terms of photography.
So you first encountered Vivian's work around 2010, 2011, right?
Yeah. It was in I was in New York at that time. I was working with Jessica Lange. I don't know if you know, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
The American actress. She's also a photographer. So I was there in New York and working with her at Howard Greenberg Gallery. And at the end of my meeting, Howard told me, "Oh, well, I'm going to show you something we just received some days ago." And and he showed me Vivian Maier print. I was even not able to pronounce her name. I didn't know who we showed, but I said, "Oh my God, that's crazy! Yes, let's do something." Yeah.
Wow. Do you remember a specific image or a set of images that made you think this woman deserves a full tribute?
Well, I've just seen 5-6 pictures, nothing else, not a precise image. I was really blown away by. In 6 pictures, it was so strong. I said, "Oh," and I said that sentence, which is for me very important. I said to him, "We really have to pay a tribute to that woman." And by the end of the day, 15 years later, we pay a tribute not only to her, but to many others, women photographers.
Yes.
What does it feel like to reconstruct a portrait of an artist from pure image with no artist statement, no interviews, no manifesto?
There's no background, right?
Yeah.
No, there's absolutely nothing. And this is the most difficult thing, because how you can get into that new territory, that new country that nobody visited before you. Sometimes when you get into an archive, there's always an historian, there's always a curator who have been there. But here it was like Magallanes in front of the so what's that? So how can I draw a face for that woman? We don't know anything about her. What can I say without being wrong? And so it took me very, very long to to get into the work, to get deep. I had to be very patient, and I did not want it to invent a Vivian Myers that did not exist. So I had to be very respectful. I had to be quiet. I had to be patient. And I think the Vivian Mayer we have now at the Centro Português of the Photography is correct. Is not too precise. It's not too abstract. But everyone who visits the exhibition can invent a Vivian Mayer who is own, you know.
So we're talking about an archive that was around maybe 120,000 to 150,000 negatives, rolls of films she never developed, home movies, audio cassettes, collected objects. How do you even begin selecting images from something that large? And what parts do you feel are still most unexplored and misunderstood?
Well, in the case of Vivian Mayer, yes, it's true, 120,000 pictures, which is something like 30% of Robert Doisneau. For example, Robert Doisneau
Wow.
is 450,000. So Vivian is 30%, which is huge. But you're right, of course, it was not just about the picture, but all the material she's been accumulating during 15 years, all her belongings. I've seen, and I get into the archive and wanted to see everything, the objects, her collections, her agendas, full of notes, her postcards she used to collect. Even she did not put in the trash anything. So really, she was someone who really needed to collect the world she was living in, the newspapers, the magazines. She has a huge culture, visual culture. She used to go to cinema 2-3 times per week. We have all the tickets of the films and movies she saw, the exhibition she visited, the book she read. Yeah, it was really huge. So she was like a kind of rag picker. She was someone who really needed to collect the world. And so it took me really, really a long time to visit it to, and COVID time was very perfect for that because there were nothing else to do than getting to the archive of Vivian every day, 1 hour, 8 hours, 10 hours.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I spent so long with her and during that quiet time. It was very, so, I've seen the archive little by little. You remember that there were kind of legal thing around Vivian.
Yes. Yeah.
So I had access first partly to the archive, and when the legal question has been solved around 2018, 2019,
Yeah.
I had the full access to the archive. So yes, it was not easy, but it was fine.
Do you still revisit the archive once in a while?
Many times. Oh yes, and to your question, what is still not
What's underexplored? Yeah.
yeah, I think you mentioned that she's done 300 home movie cinema, Super 8 and 16. I think that part is still needs to be investigated, studied. I'm not a specialist into cinema, but I find that there's still something remains hidden there, and we should put some historian of cinema into that field to reveal really the specificities of her cinema.
So we're talking about home movies or something that she picked up the camera and go film in the streets, something like Ed Van Elsken.
Oh, I would say that it was amateur films in the 60s. In 1965, she has a Bolex Super 8 camera, and she used to go and film in the street of Chicago, and many times, and you can see that in the exhibition as a Centro Português de la Fotografia, because we show 9 films where you see that first she films with her Super 8 film, and then she takes pictures of what she found into that scene. So you have some correspondences of the pictures, the photographic pictures, the still pictures, and the moving film. She first filming, and then when she finds the photograph, she stops and she takes the photograph.
Ah.
Mm. So really, her film are not really about what she sees, but how she sees, how she's moving her eyes into a scene, how she's looking for the still pictures, the photograph.
So interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huh.
So there's no other photographer in the 20th century who did something like that. It's really singular, and it's really Vivian Maier.
Well, it's interesting because it shows us a perspective, her perspective,
Yeah.
and in the way she
She
sees
looked at the world.
the
Yeah.
street. Yeah, she sees the street and what triggers her to take a picture of.
Yeah, yeah, that's correspondences are really special because you see what's happening in her eyes before she finds the pictures. It's like a contact sheet at some point. In the exhibition also we show some contact sheet. It's a very interesting document because you see how she moves, how she frames differently, how she's looking for the right pictures, and the little shift, the little movement she's doing while she's filming or while she's taking others' photographs is informs us of how she proceed, what is her methods at some point.
And it's curious because she was taught completely self-taught, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, as I mentioned, the fact that she never ever had any class of photography. She was completely on her own, and the thing is, which is really strange, is that remember that at that time, having access to photography or having camera was specifically for a certain class, a social class.
Yes.
She belongs to the very low base of the pyramid. Her mother was also a housekeeper. Grandmother was a cooker in New York. So, but how she get access to photography was something I was very impressed by. And her first camera belonged to her mom. Her mom had a Brownie Kodak. You remember that cameras?
Yes.
Yeah, it was very it was a precarity photography at that time.
Yes. Yeah.
So how her mom gets that camera? Well, simply because her mom had a cousin in France. Her mom was French, and she was settled into the Alps near Gap in the mountains. And in that little village in the Champsaur, where the mom came from, her cousin had a shop, a photographic shop. So he offered her that little camera. And when Vivian used to spend her time, many times, summertime in the late 40s, she used to have a bike and take the mom's camera and looking around into the mountains, the village, and take her first photographs until she bought her Rolleiflex in 1950. Rolleiflex at that time was a professional camera. And she bought that camera, but the first pictures she did with, and then the second, I would say the second contact Vivian had with photography was in the 1930s when the fathers, her mom and her dad, split in New York. The mom, Maria Josso, take Vivian with her, living in Jeanne Bertrand house in Bronx near in Manhattan, and that Jeanne Bertrand was a photographer. So Vivian lived with her during 4 years, and this is a contact which was very important for Vivian, as she was one of the most important photographer, had contact with a surrealist at that time. So Vivian was involved into photography at that time.
Okay. She was a woman with poor and no institutional backing, working in a field dominated by men. How much does gender matter when we're looking at her work? And how much has it shaped the way she's been received, both in her invisibility during her lifetime and in her celebration after death?
Oh, the most important part is probably the celebration after her death. I would say the posthumous recognition. Remember that, as I've said, I mean, she was a woman. She was no one. She was invisible, as you say, and you're totally right on this. And in the last 15 years, she had such a vertical impulse, come change her invisibility into iconicity. And being a woman photographer in the 20th century was very hard because if you don't have any, I would say, mentor, male, just behind you, has Diane Arbus had, has Ellen Levitt had many other women photographer had, if you don't have a husband, a wealthy husband next to you, you're convicted to have a very short time life career as a photographer. But
Yeah.
Vivian was completely on her own, and Vivian never tried to earn money on photography. Probably she would have failed because, I mean, of course, it was so hard to be a professional and a woman in at that time. But to reply your question, which is really really interesting about the question of gender, uh, I I don't think that we could recognize a certain gender through the eye of Vivian Mayer. Vivian Mayer has a certain specificity, I would say, physical specificity. She was very tall. She was very built, well built. She was strong.
Ah.
She was wearing men's shoes. By the way, she was wearing Balenciaga shoes.
Huh.
Uh, she was not
Mhm.
very feminine, but I think when she took pictures of people in the street, her presence was so strong that no one could say anything to her. So, and also as the fact she was using a Rolleiflex, she used to get very close to the people she takes pictures of. And mainly, I found in the archive that she had conversation with that people she used to meet in the street, people she'd never met before. But yes, she had conversation. On the envelope of the negatives, Vivian used to mention what happened during the photograph sessions.
Ah.
Oh, yes, with her handwriting, something like, imagine she met someone in the street and she can describe the circumstances and she can even describe who was the people. I met that immigrant, he was Italian, he did not even speak a word of.
Wow.
Yeah, and so all of that things are very, very interesting. But we cannot focus on the fact she was a woman. I don't think so.
Hmm.
Mm.
I only asked that because of maybe of the way of her seeing the world. Because during those times, being a woman was very, very, very hard, very complicated, very limited, and um, maybe the way she was photographing it was projecting something of that. I don't know, maybe in a poetic way of looking at the world.
Yes, I think you're right on the point that she probably saw some things that belonged to her. Take in account that she belonged to the dark phase of the American dream. She was no one. She had no house, no roots, no family, no husband, nothing. So she was completely lost at some point and she was poor. And she took pictures of that or the dark side of the American dream has so people she was wandering into the poor side of New York, of Chicago, and she was alone to take part of that daily life in the poor neighborhoods where workers, where immigrants, where I would say homeless people were. And she takes
Hmm.
pictures of that. Not completely the opposite of, I would say, Ellen Levitt, who belonged to another social class. She was from the bourgeoisie and etc. So she did not see the same thing. So Vivian, documented the other side, behind the curtain of the American
Mm.
dream, because herself was. belonging to that part. And when she takes pictures of people like her, you cannot you it's so powerful, the communication they have, because they recognize themselves
I
belonging to the same.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So do you think that she knew at some level that the photographs would outlast her?
She knew the photograph she took were excellent and were taking part of, I would say, a kind of large fabric, a large documentation of the 60s in US. I don't know if I understood well your question, but she
Because
knew. Yeah.
she was collecting everything, right? So do you think that at some point she believed that this work would outlive her, would be seen at some point?
No,
Was something no?
well, that's a very, very difficult question, because it involves, of course, ethical purpose, ethical point of view about what
Mm,
we are doing with Vivian Mayer. Um, I don't think she would have expected the work to be seen, neither to be published, neither to be exhibited. But
okay.
remember that all that crates, all that belonging were stored into a storage in Chicago during 30 years. And until she could not afford paying the rent of the storage, and until the owner of the storage put everything on auction, Vivian Mayer never ever put everything in the trash. She could have done that and said, "Well, I abandon everything. I cannot afford. I don't care. I don't mind." Yes, she minded. Yes, of course, she was caring, but she left the door open. She left the door open to us get into that place, take care of what she could not take care of herself. And I think we did it well. I think we did it with respect. And I think behind Vivian Myers, there's thousands of people who recognize themselves because they're women, because they are unseen or unpublished artists, because they belong to the shadow. So she became an icon of representing all that people. And I'm sure, I'm sure it's difficult to say, but wherever she is, I'm sure she's satisfied with what we're doing with for her and because of her.
Hmm. Let me ask you something that I'm tenderly curious. You mentioned her color work as one of the areas she entered. What is about her color work photography that still needs more attention? What do people miss when they think of Vivian Mayer only as a black and white photographer?
Yeah, well, she could not have been good everywhere. I mean, the main signature of Vivian is the square size and black and
Yeah,
white.
yeah.
But she was curious. She was an experimental woman, always open to new experiences, and color was one of them. But I am profoundly honest when I say that I don't think that colors photography for Vivian was the best. No,
Mm,
but color cinema are both linked at some point, and it's not funny, but it's interesting to see that she began at the same time photography in color and cinema while she was living at the Gainsbourg family.
ah,
Yeah,
huh.
and the Gainsbourg family was a family where she's been very happy. She spent 11 years with them between 1956 to 1967, and it's the happiest moment. And this is when she is playing with photography. She's
Ah,
experimenting new things. And when you see her archive, and you see clearly that from 1967, when she left the family, until she died, her
hmm,
life is drifting, her life is going down. Her photography is slowly, slowly getting back to the shadow and the obscurity.
hmm.
So color photography belongs to that time of experimenting, playing, trying new things.
And,
Yeah.
and it makes sense. in a way.
And it's the kids, the three kids, by the way, who kept the ashes when Vivian passed and put them in the house in Highland Park in Chicago, where she's been spending that time with them, um, involved her into adventure. She used to bring them after school. She brings them to a wood they have behind the house
Mhm.
to collect. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
No problem.
To collect strawberries, to really play, invent stories, and document
Ah.
all that stuff. So it's really something that belonged to that period, color, cinema, etc.
In a recent interview, you've mentioned that her self portraits are the most important part of her work. She done a lot of self portraits over 45 years, and most iconic ones aren't even, you can see even see her face, only shadows,
It's those
reflections,
shadows, yeah.
silhouettes. What was she looking for in a relentless self examination?
Well, self portrait is probably the heartbeating of Vivian Meyer, the most important part, the thing that I think really makes a difference with others photographer, because we estimate the number of self portraits she took between 1950 to 1995, which is 45 years of photography, to 23,000 self portrait. It's amazing, it's huge, it's really consistent. For me, this necessity to take portrait of herself or to do self representation was in a way to a kind of act of resistance against a society that did not want to recognize, to see her. It's a proof of her living. It's each self-portrait says, "I'm here at that time, at that moment, against you that erase us, the poor, the workers, the abandoned people. I'm here, and I have the proof, and this is the picture." So
Mhm.
um, of course, what is interesting nowadays for the young generation in that work, when they say the self portrait vocabulary of Vivian Meyer, they think that she was at the very beginning of the self portrait tradition, which nowadays circulates on the social media. And that's really strong nowadays, the necessity to be self represented and to show the proof on the social media that we have a nice life, we eat good food, we travel very far, we do extraordinary things. For Vivian Meyer, self portrait was not that. Self portrait was a way to say, I'm alive. However, I'm hidden, I'm not recognized, I'm infamous. Infamous in Latin means the one who is not accepted in the society.
Ah.
And she was infamous. And that was probably the reason why she took so many self portraits. She is the only photographer of the 20th century who really dive very deep into that question.
Hmm. You were just talking about this the new age of photography. We live in a total era of visibility, of Instagram and constant self-publication. Meyer did exactly the opposite, right? You've called her the mother of Instagram. That's a bold claim. Can you expand on it?
I don't think she was. I mean, it's a very different point of view. I think that the selfie is a luxury. It would tend to be, it should be, but it's a lie. Vivian Mayer is not lying. Vivian Mayer is really needed to have the proof that she's living. And without all that pictures, Vivian Mayer would have slowly drifted into the obscurity and remain into the obscurity. But she raised to the surface of the visible all that people like her. So at some point, it was an imperious necessity to prove herself that she was existing. You know, why Vivian Mayer never tried to show her picture, to share her photographs? Simply because photography for her was a room of on her own, just to wink, just to make a wink to Virginia Woolf, famous book, A Room of One's Own. And she said in that book, Virginia Woolf, if you don't have a room for you, for yourself, a place to be, you will never be free. And it's a kind of manifesto to feminism, because if a woman do not have that room, she won't be free. And photography for Vivian was that room, the place where she was not just an Annie, she was Vivian Mayer. She was not just at the service of the other, she was herself. She was building her own identity. And self-portrait was a way for her to build the identity she was not allowed to have at that time. In the 60s in US, if you don't belong to the very happy few, the top of the pyramid, who's smiling, who is wealthy, who is successful, well, you're no one. You're invisible. You're not there to be seen. So of course, there's a resonance between the selfies and which are circulating on Instagram, etc., and Vivian Mayer self-portrait and self-representation. But it's really not the same purpose. Really not. One is a necessity, the other one is a luxe, and the other one is a lie.
You've placed her along Robert Frank, Gary Legrand, and Lee Friedlander. Some critics have asked whether she truly belongs in that canon, or whether the romance of her story inflates our reading of her work. How do you answer that?
Well, I mean, yes, of course. There's a part in Vivian Mayer's story that inflates, that is overexposed, I would say, all her work. That's why I really wanted to cut with that part, which is very American. All the storytelling of her discovery, of the in extremis recognition of her work. I mean, all that things are not very interesting to me. I mean, I proved during 15 years that the work was strong enough to face history of photography. And yes, she can perfectly sit next to that big icons, monolights of the history of photography. There's no doubt about that. Just see the work. It's clear that the density is very high and it's really strong in itself. So there's no need to have access to her life, to her discovery, to the mysterious of Vivian Mayer, to just prove that she was strong. So now she belongs to history of photography. That was our most important aim. And it's in a way we prove that history is not a crystallized place of the past. Sometimes a rhizoma from the very deep of the history can raise the surface and become a big tree and grow
Yes.
and that's the phenomenon of Vivian Mayer. That's so beautiful. And you know what? Nowadays, there's plenty of unseen photographers, unseen artists that still belong to the shadows, that are very motivated to be seen, to be shared, and they work hard because they think that it's possible. Vivian Mayer did. Why not them?
She can be a role model for them.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, because she carries with her all that part of the history which is still to be discovered. She's been discovered. She was a matter. She was no one. Any no one can be seated in history now. And that's beautiful.
Yeah, I still believe she if she was known, she would have been in the new documents exhibition that John Starkowski did at the Museum of Modern Art. I think she's the fourth member missing there.
Yeah, she could have been there, absolutely. I mean, this curator at MoMA was really open to new
It
photographers.
was a shift, right? Was the new photographers, the new way of seeing the world, and I think she's the element that's missing there.
Well, I mean, MoMA changed. By the way, MoMA never accepted the archive of Vivian Mayer, and I think,
Oh,
oh no, that's a shame. And you know what? Because there were not enough vintage prints. She only printed 5,000 pictures,
oh,
and the MoMA, when John Malouf proposed the MoMA to integrate Vivian Mayer archive into their collections, they said no. Probably John Tarkovsky would have said yes.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. He was someone apart. He was really uh, always open to new vision. I think he's the one who did the first exhibition of color at MoMA with Eggleston in 1976.
Think so, yeah.
The new document exhibition was a revolution into the vision of photographers of the 20th century. So we did the work on our own without any institution. It took longer because
Hmm.
one exhibition of Vivian Mayer at MoMA would have consolidated in one time her career. It would have been validated just because of the stamp of the MoMA. We did not have that stamp. It took longer to create a strategy of visibility. We did thousands of exhibitions all around the world of Vivian Mayer, and it continues to. Nowadays, there's an exhibition at Fotografisca in Shanghai, and you cannot imagine how many queues, how long everyday people have to wait to get into the wall and to discover, and how many people are moved and to tears when they discover the work. It's so huge and
Oh,
powerful. It's so human too, you know. So at the end, MoMA missed the train, but the train continued to ride all around the world.
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
And so let's talk about the exhibition in Porto. It will be until August 30th. For someone walking in tomorrow who knows nothing about Vivian Mayer, what do you hope they carry out when they leave the exhibition?
Well, let's be moved by the work. However, you don't know about her, you don't need to be prepared. Just face the work. Just listen to the whispers, to the secrets that she has to tell you. And you know, I guess the most important legacy Vivian Mayer um, gave us is, if you have a dream, go till the end. And however, you have plenty of things against you, believe and you will succeed. And this is exactly what she says to us: believe. And if you have a passion, embrace your passion. Look at the world, discover the extraordinary, which is always into the depth of the ordinary. Don't need to go far to find beautiful. Beauty is around you. And it's a marvelous way to learn how to look banality, look ordinary things, and you will find extraordinary.
Hmm. So after more than a decade with the work, after all the cities and all the odysseys, is there still something about Vivian Mayer that genuinely puzzles you? Something that you haven't been able to resolve?
Well, you know, we have to give up at some point to try to resolve. There's a part which is the main center of Vivian Mayer mystery that
Hmm.
belongs to her, and we are not welcome there. We just have to let it go. It
Hmm.
belongs to her. It's her story. She gave really too much. She gave a lot to us. We just have to handle the things until a certain point. Of course, that mystery is really attractive,
Hmm.
and there's no need to know more. You know, there's plenty of thousands of other pictures that one day I would love to share with the public, and who knows, maybe in 5, 10 years I will build another exhibition of Vivian Mayer, because really the density of pictures when you see a contact sheet. It's so hard to choose, really so hard to choose. And probably one day I will go again there in that little room which is her own archive, where I go sometimes. I spend time with her pictures, and build another exhibition, because there's so many that we don't know. And yes, you were talking about the roles that she never developed. There were something like 2,500 roles. Imagine, undeveloped. Why she left all this? Probably because she could not afford to pay and to develop this. So has been developed now. We have complete visibility on the 120,000 pictures.
Wow.
So yes, there's still parts we should explore more, etc. But it takes so long to take care of her, and we cannot do any mistake for her, because it's so precious, it's so delicate, it's so strong, and we really have to take the time which is needed to make sure she continues to be visible.
If you could ask her one question today, what would it be?
Well, I would not ask anything, but would say one word: thank you, or two words: thank you. Thank you for, well, for letting the door open to all this to happen. I don't want to ask anything, but just to face and to embrace everything she gave to us, because really believe she gave all that to us. She did not really abandon the thing. No, I would not ask. I would just
Thank her.
welcome all.
Yeah.
Everything has a gift, has a present. And for me, it has been one of the most important challenge I ever faced in my career, because of course I can work with Sally Mann, I can work with Saul Later, I can work with Steve McCurry, others curators have been working on. But Vivian, I was the very first one. I was maybe the only one during a long time, and still the only one at some point, because I have the key to go to her archive anytime I want to go there, to listen to tapes, to see all the stuff. But yeah, no question. Just embrace her and give her a big hug. This is what I want to give her.
Okay, Jan, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
your
your
time.
It has been
To
a
be
great
with us and sharing your perspective about Vivian's work. We could be here for
all day,
all day talking about this, and talk about perhaps in another chance if you can have it.
I hope everyone is got a bit curious to go see the exhibition. I think it's well deserving the visit.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's a nice exhibition, Centro Português of Photography. It's a great place. It was a prison, you see.
Yeah.
It was it has a huge identity, where people has been in jail during many, many years, some things. And you see, she has been in jail herself too, but she found the door to freedom, and this door was called photography.
Yeah, so we'll finish our episode in Portuguese to say goodbye to our listeners and give
Thank you so much
information about the exhibition. Ok? And por isso, malta, relembramos que a exposição Vivian Maier Antologia está a decorrer no Centro Português de Fotografia no Porto até dia 30 de agosto. A entrada é paga, são 10 euros, e parte da receita da bilheteira é destinada a acreditar a Associação de Pais e Amigos de Crianças com Cancro, apoiando a missão da instituição no acompanhamento de crianças e jovens com doença oncológica e das suas famílias. Também é possível agendar antecipadamente visitas guiadas à exposição. Tem um custo extra e é aos domingos às 11 horas. Esperemos que tenham gostado desta nossa conversa e que tenham ficado ainda mais curiosos para visitar esta exposição. Fica a nota de que na altura em que estamos a fazer esta gravação temos uma votação a decorrer no nosso Discord para escolhermos o dia em que iremos fazer uma visita juntamente com os membros da nossa comunidade do podcast. e curiosamente os nossos patronos vão ter acesso gratuito, ok? Por isso, malta, se querem juntar-se à nossa comunidade, ou até mesmo tornarem-se aos patronos, que desde já nós agradecemos, podem fazê-lo através do link que está na bio do nosso Instagram. Basta procurarem por Prova de Contacto Podcast, a partir do qual podem nos enviar sugestões, temas, até mesmo nomes de convidados que vocês acham que sejam interessantes, até feedback sobre os episódios. Podem fazê-lo por mensagem privada, ou então também podem fazer por e-mail, que é
para o provadecontacto.podcast@gmail.com.
Ok, malta. Como sempre, muito obrigado por estarem desse lado a ouvir-nos e até ao próximo episódio.
Até, malta. Até a próxima.